Oh, hey. Hey, kids, how are you? Good to see you. It's been a minute, and but it's great to see you. I keep meaning to be here more frequently, and oh, it seems that the harder I try, the harder it becomes to do it sometimes, and yeah, it just happens. I guess. Well, you can see the title of today's episode, "The Great Disappointment," and I'll tell you what I mean by that. But first, I guess we'll do this. Where do I have a screen for that somewhere? Is it this? Is it that? Is that it? Yeah, a little update thing. Health-wise, last few weeks have been just really difficult. Just trying to keep everything together. Some frustrations in finding out that I don't. My doctor, my primary care physician, isn't there anymore. And they didn't tell me about that, so that was kind of frustrating. And then they changed my insurance around. Got like twice. Like the first time I did it because it was a requirement due to the change of income, and then the other one they just changed automatically without my consent or approval. So I don't know what happened. So I got to make a bunch of phone calls. Just found that out this weekend. So anyway, that's wild. We're going to try in earnest to see what we can come up with this next year with the University of Washington. I have found some progress, and so my working theory has been. If you've been following along it for any period of time with the neurologic stuff, my working theory is that due to huge mass doses of Neurontin, gabapentin, a number of years ago, about 12 years ago now, when I had back surgery, nearing 13 actually. So it was nerve pain. What happened was the synovial cyst at L5S1, and it was impinging on the ganglion nerve root there. So it was like having a pinched nerve, like 30,000 pinched nerves all at once. It was awesome. And they aspirated it and then gave a little cortisone shot. It felt right as rain. Perfect until about a year later. And then so exactly the same thing, only a little worse. Went back, they did the same treatment, aspirated it, drained it, gave me a shot of cortisone. But after, just like as soon as I was leaving the hospital, I was like, something's not right. And when I got home, the pain was just incredible. So I called them back, and they had me come right back in and put me under MRI. Found that I had this synovial cyst, which is we knew that already. But what they'd found, basically just this synovia is a wall, the sheath that goes around your nerves, and there's that's the myelin sheath, but the big one, the synovial sheath, goes around your spinal column. And there's a weak spot developed in that L5S1. That's the last lumbar where it goes into the sacrum, right there at the bottom of your back, where it kind of arches. And and that's where the last ganglion nerve root is. It spreads off to the lower portion of your body anyway. So kind of like a blood blister, right? Just kind of pooched out there, but that pooching out kind of pushed on that ganglion nerve root, which was more than a little uncomfortable. And when the second time around, it had calcified. So in other words, it became like a bone spur pressing on it. And yeah, super uncomfortable. And so surgery was required. And again, I still don't fully understand why they do it this way, but they did a lumbar laminectomy, which is essentially what you would do if you had a messed up vertebrae or a slipped or compressed disc. And my discs were fine, my vertebrae were fine. But this is what they did to relieve the problem, was take out that basically L5 vertebrae. I think L4 is what they did, L4. Took that out, crushed the vertebrae, put titanium mesh in there for it to regrow, and then in doing that, were able to pull the nerve bundle away from it so that when it grew back, it wouldn't impinge. So kind of a trade-off there, but it had to stop. Anyway, during that period of time, what they gave me was Neurontin, which was fairly new. You may be familiar with the gabapentin. It's a nerve-blocking agent. And because they were hesitant to give out opioids, like they still are, it was even worse then. And they said, we could give you enough to kill you, and it still wouldn't relieve the pain. So they tried this Neurontin thing, and it a little bit helped, I guess, but I tolerated it well. They gave me a bunch of it, and I was taking like 4 or 5 times the maximum recommended dose. It was in the many tens of thousands of units a day. It was ridiculous. And I could tell, so nerve agent, it affects nerves. But you know what else is a bundle of nerves? Your brain. So I began noticing strange things, like I would have difficulty with words, sometimes word finding, and sometimes just difficulty going through a whole thought process. It just wasn't there. But what happened was I developed like neuroplasticity, and that I could find new pathways, and I should have been terrified. And part of me, I think, was, but instead, I was just fascinated by the entire process. But I, again, kept taking it, and I developed some other things like a tick, a regular tick, like a, all the muscles involuntary tighten up really fast, and often leaving you with that little expulsion of air because your diaphragm does it as well. And that typically at night, but it became worse and worse. And then even after the surgery, when I stopped taking Neurontin, that didn't go away. And then over the years, again, several years later, now about 3.5 years ago, developed what I, at the time, the first impressions were it was some kind of cyclical vomiting syndrome or something that, it's like, I don't know, a GI thing or something. I was getting these weird, like instant vomiting and with very little notice. And it wasn't without nausea, though. It was like a cramp in my stomach. Boy, we looked all over on this one, and there were some other weird symptoms. And finally, after about 3 years, we finally came up with a diagnosis of exclusion, which is myalgic encephalomyelitis, which is a subset of chronic fatigue syndrome. Which I kind of hate that chronic fatigue. It's like, oh, I see, you're lazy. No, it's not like that. It's orthostatic intolerance, which means that any activity that you do means that your body doesn't recover from it. So whether it's running a marathon or just walking around the store, it means that your body doesn't recover. And then if you keep trying to push it, that's when I was getting sick and vomiting. So it was like a muscular cramp right of the midsection. And so that came about through, again, a diagnosis of exclusion, and did some medications in that regard. Amitriptyline, treating it like a abdominal migraine, and so amitriptyline does help push the threshold back a little bit. One of the most helpful things for me is ondansetron, which is with the sublingual dissolving tablet, not the other one. And if I catch it just as I'm about to pop, right, when the mouth starts to water and that sort of stuff, not to be too graphic, but if I can catch it just before, it often does work. And so it does prevent me from, spewing, but it still does wear you out, much like you'd already, you'd done it anyway. You're pretty wiped out. And so it takes time to rest up. Well, part of the problem there, again, is you spend a lot of time resting. And when you do that, of course, your muscles begin to atrophy. And then they don't have as much capacity. And so you can move even less before you reach your limit. And you can see how that would become a spiral, which it has. And so I'm not thrilled about that. But then right after 3 days post oral surgery and had a total extraction in preparation for implants, woke up in the middle out of a dead sleep, woke up just after 4 o'clock in the morning with incredible pain at the left mandible, right there with the trigeminal nerve meets the jaw there. Incredible pain and tremors and all kinds of neuropathy, like pain. I was like, oh dear, what's happening? So I jumped in the shower. It was a very, and that was even scarier because it was a very definite, razor sharp definition between the left and the right side. I was like, oh God, I'm stroking out. And I've told the story before. By miracle, I went into my local doctor's office here, and usually, I can never get in. 6-8 weeks is what it takes to get in. But I went in with a UA sample because I have kind of a standing order there for all these tests. And of course, it was Monday and the lab was closed. But my doctor, who I still had at the time, had just had a cancellation. Do I want to see her? Yes, of course. So I popped in, and literally 4 minutes from being there, I was in her exam room. But immediately she sent me for imaging. And so sent me over to the emergency room at Swedish Edmunds. And if I had a stroke, I would have died because it took them about 2.5 hours to get me into the CT. But when they did, they found no bleeder, but some interesting spots. But then they asked, well, have you been under some stress? And I went, well, where do I begin, right? I lost my sister and my niece and my mom all within, my mom and my niece within weeks of each other, and my sister just barely a year before that, all unexpectedly. So I guess there's that, and plus all that being sick and all the stress and lost work and blah, blah, blah. So, the guy's like, oh, yeah, okay, right, conversion. And I'm like, what's that? We'll go look it up. And I did. And, it's all based mostly on these Swedish studies in the the early 90s. It's been badly translated to English. And so, yeah, when they say it's a brain problem, it kind of comes out like mental problem, and that's not exactly what we're working with. And so, but when I went to see, well, I thought I was going to a neurologist first in my care group, and it turned out it was some kind of a PA, a specialist PA, which didn't help much. Anyway, she said, "Oh, we the conversion. Oh, yeah, functional neuropathy. We usually treat that as a behavioral health issue." And I said, "Well, I can appreciate that, but if you can tell me, if you can discuss with me the mechanism by which it wakes me up in the middle of the night with what looks like late stage Parkinson's because I'm sad because my mom died, then write a paper." She goes, "Oh, maybe we should look at imaging." I'm like, maybe we should. That sounds good. So yeah, we did that, and we've been continuing to do that. But then what I discovered toward the end of the year, which has been again a disappointment, one of the many, is that they didn't give me any notice that my doctor had left, and so now I got to kind of start all over again, and it's a big hassle. But I am pushing forward with the University of Washington with a neurology clinic, and there's a variety of tests and stuff we're going to do there because that will affect what's coming next, hopefully, which is us leaving. I should get as much information as I can here with everything kind of situated the way it is. Figure out what's going on. Been taking so by working again diagnosis is that something happened with that neurontin that caused a delamination of the myelin sheath process because it is currently what we know so far is happening. It's degenerative and irreparable. It's irreversible. What we can do is try to mitigate it. So I've already started just on huge doses of much B complex, thiamine, niacin, B12, B6, B1, all the stuff because that's all involved precursors to myelin development. So trying to get that covered because I think that's part of the problem is that the myelin sheath has become thin and then it kind of just crosstalk, right? So and that gets you all messed up. So that's my working theory, at least on the latest thing. However, again, pushing forward, but it is, again, as I would say, disappointing, right? It was unexpected. And because, I had better things to do, right? I had better things on my plate. But, Dad does what he wants. And as difficult as it has been, and it has been, I don't need to go belabor the point. It wouldn't help anyway, because I'm not looking for your sympathy. I'm just trying to get you up to speed here. But, when things go difficult for me, and there have been a lot of difficulties, first place I go is, write to Dad and say, oh, help. And so that's a positive benefit because I just spend more and more and more time in his presence. But a lot of people have been throwing stuff at me over this period of time about, you're not getting better, blah, 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 long-term sickness. And, either you're faking or you're trying to, milk it for what sympathy, I haven't asked anybody for money or anything. I'm just like, now there have been some very awesome, faithful, really amazing people who have, without whom we couldn't have made it. But I don't do the e-begathon thing. It's like if you want to, if Dad asks you to and nudges you, then follow him, right? be accountable to him, but not to me. I'm just another one of his kids, right? But he takes care of all of us, and sometimes he uses us to help take care of each other. And that's what I'm trying to do here, right? Is to help take care of my friends and give you encouragement, even in the midst of what seems like disappointment and difficulty. And certainly it is difficult. There's no question. We're not going to diminish that at all, right? But that all of us who are chasing this down to the end are under immense pressure now. It's certainly for me and for many people, most difficult season ever, and it looks as though we're coming into even more difficult season. And as I said, the last few weeks have been both physically and emotionally extremely difficult for me. Physically, the neuropathy stuff. So again, the myalgic encephalomyelitis, kind of manageable. We're working with that. This other thing, it's harder because I keep having these little seizures, and then I can't remember things, right? I kind of out of my mind for a minute, and that's all very intimidating. But ultimately, again, my relationship with dad, I think the dad's in it. And what I mean by that is not necessarily that he caused it, but he's not taking it all away right now, and for a reason. There's things for me to learn in it, and already I'm learning some of those things, right? And one of the, I guess, primary things is in our weakness, he is strong. Right? There's at this point, there's so little that I can do that I have to rely on him, and that's a perfect place to be. Really, completely reliant on Dad, because he never lets you down, and things get done so much better than I would have ever planned. So there's something to be said about it, right? And I am learning these lessons. And again, I think he's in it. I just think that it is not a punishment, right, for any kind of bad behavior. It's not. It may be a teaching lesson, but it's not something that he's brought upon me. But it's something that he's helping me through it, right? So we got that. So anyway, but I always can use prayer because it is very difficult, and it limits this primarily, right? Because I have other things I have to get do, and any little use of energy throughout the day expends what very little I have, and this does take some. But of late, nearly every time I get up, it's my instant illness, and it takes hours to get over it. So it's been a real challenge, right? But so again, pray that we would have more stamina and more energy to do this, because while I just say hey, take care of yourself, don't do anything extra. I'm not here again to garner any sympathy. That's not the point, but rather to encourage you, right? To say that I know, because I talk to people. That's why I'm not, partly why I don't complain, is because every day I talk to people who have it so many much worse challenges than I have, right? Mine's just long and ongoing. It's kind of wearing me down. That's hard, right? But many people, it's again, especially if they're chasing after the Creator, it's gonna have this effect. And so I wanted to, I don't know, just kind of touch on this real quick, right? And say that with all this, right? Well, I guess the other thing I'll talk about with the health update, right? In addition to the physical stuff, the mental stuff, one of the very difficult challenges, and again, it's hard to talk about, but it, super personal, but it is what it is working through all the stuff, I am. And as you know, I've been, made no secret that I have had kind of long-term chronic depression and some other stuff. But what kind of working through some things, and what I came to the awareness of, and that's like so frustrating to be this late in life to go, oh, is that what's up? It is confirmation that going through complex PTSD, right? CPSD. What is that? Why is it complex? It's complicated. Post-traumatic stress disorder, right, is that your brain does some unhealthy coping mechanisms when it undergoes severe trauma. And a variety of things. There's a number of symptoms. You can look it up. I'm not a doctor. But the complex PTSD is usually... and PTSD, by the way, can be a singular event or a series of events usually related. Complex PTSD is something that's developed over a long period of time, and usually in your childhood, right? And usually as part of a betrayal from someone you love and need, you trust to take care of you. So it develops that way. So hey, guess what? Guess what I got, guys? But it in some ways, right? Just like when I first was advised to get the book Adult Children of Alcoholic Parents, and I was like, well, why would I do that? Because my parents are teetotalers. Like, that doesn't make any sense, right? They're like, well, sickness is as sickness does, so it doesn't matter what the thing is. Just if you don't like, if it doesn't work for you, I'll buy the book from you. I'm like, fine. It's like $5. When I read it, I had this eye-opening experience first that all these symptoms were connected, these areas in my life, the difficulties of the challenges in my emotional, personal character, makeup, whatever, that were difficult, that I could never seem to overcome. These certain specific ones were all tied to this locus, right, of family of origin stuff. And so, right away you go, wow, okay, it's not my fault. I'm not just completely screwed up. I mean, I am screwed up, but I'm not just a broken, randomly broken individual. It's that these things happen to me. But then really quickly you come to the next realization, which is, but that doesn't, it's not an excuse. Now that you know it, now you have responsibility. You're responsible for what you do with that. And one thing that I couldn't do, right, or wouldn't do, was just allow myself to blame others. Not going to blame my parents because clearly it's generational. It's passed on, right? They got it too from somewhere. They just didn't wake up one day and say, "Hey, we're going to screw this kid up." Few parents do that. There are, a few that do, but most, are just trying to live their life and they just don't really know how to do it. And we've lost the ability for multi-generational families where the grandparents really know how to do the kids because they have experience, right? And yeah, anyway. So all that to get here, right? But again, I come to this place and doing some research on something else entirely, but Dad often leads me to places, and it looks like, hopefully, Lord willing, the creek don't rise. This is one of the last major areas, right, that I have to conquer is the fallout from that, all the unhealthy crap that came out of this, you know, basically sort of, abandonment issues, and it's complex PTSD, right? It's like things happening over and over and over outside of your control. Again, especially when you're young, especially by someone you're supposed to trust, right? And so it wreaks havoc with a bunch of stuff. And so, I'll get through it. So I'm again not complaining, not going, oh, poor me. It's just it came at an awkward time, right? Trying to work with a bunch of this stuff. But I hope, right, it's the last part of the thing. But again, it was this, with all of this stuff, right? One of the ways that I described the circumstance, it's disappointing. I didn't expect it, this age, still not quite 60 yet. And I've been preternaturally healthy my whole life. And so this is not what I expected. I didn't expect that I would face sudden debilitating health issues, right? During a time when ostensibly I need to be, in my best game form. And so, what does that mean? And again, I leave it in Dad's hands, but I get to this place, and I think I want to offer this to, again, another very transparent, vulnerable thing that probably my biggest fear is being like when you take this disappointment and you take it from a verb, something that happens to you. I was disappointed, to a noun. I'm a disappointment. Right? That is my greatest fear, of being a disappointment. I am terrified of the parable of the talents that Jesus said. There was a rich man who was going on a long journey, and so he gave some of his wealth. He gave 5 talents, which was a whole bunch of money, just like $1 million. So he gave $5 million to one guy. He said, "Hey, take care of it for me, and we'll settle up when I get back." So another guy, he gave 2 talents to the one. He gave 1, each to their ability, is what it says. And he goes off, and he's gone a long time, and he comes back, and there's great rejoicing. Yay. And then he asked for the accounting, and the first guy says, "Hey, master, when you left, I didn't know how long you'd be gone, but I invested it and doubled your money. Here you go, here's 10 talents." And he's like, "Rock on, well done, good and faithful servant." So yeah, here you go. I'll share it with you. Like, here, I'll give you more responsibility. The next guy, what'd you do? Well, I took the 2 you gave me and I invested it, and I bought some cattle and did this, and now here's 4. He's like, "Right on, excellent, good work." And the last guy's like, "Hey, what'd you do?" And he's like, "Well, I know that you're a shrewd man, and you make money where you didn't really even invest, and you reap where you didn't sow, and so I was scared, and I buried it to keep it safe. But here it is. I dug it up. Here's exactly. You can count it. It's all there." So what are you talking about? What's wrong with you? You knew I was a shrewd man. Why didn't you at least put it in the bank and get interest on it? What's wrong with you? So yeah, you're fired, and take that one and give it to the guy with 10 because he knows what to do with it. But it's weird that an extreme value of money, like $1 million or whatever, in the ancient world, translates to talents in English, and something else I've always been concerned about, right, is not making a difference, not making a use of the skills and the gifts that He gave me for to make the world a better place. And again, that's part of what's driving me into the future, right? Going, okay, last Hail Mary attempt, right, to do something good for this world. So that will explain some stuff that you'll hopefully see upcoming soon in the spring. But until then, I wanted to share these things with you, right? That, again, if you are, as I am, right, looking forward to spending eternity with our Creator and increasingly finding the world around us to be less and less enticing. But as we are the temple, right, we cannot harm the temple, right, because we don't want to harm Him that way. And He says, "He that endures till the end will be saved." And I just want to share this with you again. That so disappointment, right? Basically, the difference between our expectations and the reality. And the bigger the disappointment, the bigger the delta, right? The bigger the gap between those two. What our expectations are and what the actuality is. And some of the people that I weep the most for these days as we come closer and closer to the end is that those who are married to this idea of a pre-tribulation rapture, that somehow they will escape the tribulation and be able to avoid anything bad. Even without that end time sort of eschatology look, those who are a part of or involved in, the prosperity gospel, right? It becomes, according to their theology, right, that if you're not being financially blessed, then you're doing something wrong and you're being punished, and you don't have enough faith. And you can measure your spiritual walk by the size of your bank balance. And I think that, if I'm not mistaken, Jesus said quite the opposite to that. So, but it becomes easy, right? So you go, hey, well, maybe I'm doing something wrong. So it becomes easy to justify doing some wrong things to jumpstart that blessing train, right? So that you don't have people thinking you're doing bad stuff. It can be very, a slippery slope. But instead, Jesus said, right, what did He say? Here we go. You'll be handed over to be persecuted and put to death, and you'll be hated by all nations because of me. Does that sound like a good time? Does that sound like I'm going to get you out of this, like a get out of jail free card? See, if the expectation is an easy ride, you're going to be deeply disappointed. And if you're deeply disappointed, then you can lose faith, right? You don't trust Him. Why is this happening? I thought it was going to be like this, not like this. At that time, many will turn away from the faith and betray and hate one another. Why will they turn away from the faith? Because they'll feel betrayed themselves, and they'll betray one another. And many false prophets will appear and deceive many people. I find it really interesting. I was just looking the other day. A sudden rash of people on YouTube, self-styled, I don't know, pastor, ministers, whatever. And usually sort of, I guess it's, I don't know if it's specific to their community, but from what I see, it usually is the African American community, where they'll put the title prophet in front of their name. Prophet, blah, 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 and Marquette Dada. I'm like, what? Why would you do that? If I'm not mistaken, let me skip over here really quick, because I think that wasn't too far away from here. Just the previous chapter, Matthew 23, right? He warns us about being snotty and giving ourselves titles. Right? He calls them hypocrites, right? That teachers of the law and Pharisees sit in Moses' seat. So, right, do what they tell you, right? Keep the law, do what they ask you to do, right? But don't do what they do, because they don't practice what they preach. So, Everything they do is done for people to see. Performative. Isn't that the name? Isn't that the religion today? It's all performative. Um, we're going to, be social justice warriors and save people. How do we do that? We're going to show our love by being tyrants and forcing everybody to do what we tell them to do. Everything is done for people to see. They make their phylacteries wide and their tassels on their garments long. And they love the place of honor at banquets and the most important seats at the synagogues. And they love to be greeted with respect in the marketplace and to be called rabbi or teacher by others. But you are not to be called rabbi, right? Because you have one teacher and you're all brothers. Oh, and the Catholic Church, let's get them too. Don't call anyone here on church Father, for you have one Father, and he is in heaven. You think J-Bro didn't know what was coming? Nor are you to become instructors. The Reverend Most Holy Dr. Rod L. Cotton. What? Right? They love that shit. The Most Holy Reverend Dr. No. Nor are you to be called instructors, for you have one instructor, the Messiah. The greatest among you will be your servant. For those who will exalt themselves will be humbled, and those who humble themselves will be exalted. And so you'll know them by their works. Are they standing up in front of a multi-million-dollar church telling you how God is going to bless you if you pledge your seed of money right here in the pulpit? Give me. He's going to lead you straight to hell, because that's where he's going. Because he doesn't know Dad. And when it comes to the end, and he'll say, hey, don't we get to go? And he says, I never knew you, right? I never knew you. For 2 Corinthians 1, it says, praise be to the God and Father of our Lord Jesus Christ, the Father of compassion and the God of all comfort, who comforts us in all of our troubles, so that we can comfort those in any trouble with the comfort we ourselves receive from God. For just as we share abundantly in the sufferings of Christ, see, sufferings, so also our comfort abounds through Christ. What can we expect? We can expect that there will be suffering, but we can also expect that we will be comforted. If we are distressed, it is for your comfort and salvation. If we're comforted, it's for your comfort, which produces in you patient endurance of the same sufferings we suffer. And our hope for you is firm, because we know that just as you share in our sufferings, so also you share in our comfort. We don't want you to be uninformed, brothers and sisters, about the troubles we experience. We're under great pressure, far beyond our ability to endure. So even that we despaired of life itself. It's happening all around us. 2021, 1.7 million estimated suicide attempts in the United States alone. Just today I read that in the United States, the number of suicide attempts this year, 7 days, 1 week, over 11,000. Many of those are murder-suicides. It's most heartbreaking to me, where people take out their whole family because they somehow think that that's better than the world around us. Indeed, we felt that we had received a sentence of death. But this happened that we might not rely on ourselves, but on God who raises the dead. He has delivered us from such deadly peril, and he will deliver us again. On him we have set our hope that he will continue to deliver us as you help us by your prayers. Then many will give thanks on our behalf for the gracious favor granted us in answer to the prayers of many. Thank you so much for your prayers, your continued prayers for us as we continue to pray for you. Consider it pure joy, brothers and sisters, when you face trials of many kinds, because you know that the testing of your faith produces perseverance. Let perseverance finish its work so you may be mature and complete, not lacking anything. And so he that endures till the end will be saved. So hang on. It's going to be difficult. They keep telling us that go to Google. They'll tell you, right? Go to news search, look up black swan, right? Dozens of people. Oh, we expect a black swan event this year. Oh, it's going to be a difficult year. They're telling us it's going to happen. It's going to be a difficult year. So be prepared. How do you be prepared? Sure, you can get water and food and all that stuff. But will it help you? What if it's taken from you? If instead you prepare spending your time with Dad, who can take that from you? Who can take it away? Nobody. Hope you guys have a great evening. I'll be back, I promise, and we're going to go through Revelation as I promised we would do. Just wanted to reach out, say hi. I tell you, it's been a difficult couple of weeks, and I'll be back to see you soon. We'll try again next weekend. Okay? Be well.